Thanks everyone for coming. Just some housekeeping. Be recording tonight's talk, posting it on YouTube. So if you have friends or colleagues that you'd like to share it with, I'll provide the link in the Meetup post. Also, most of you already are on mute, but just if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand capability. And we'll do some answers at the end. Also, I guess with that being said, I'd like to introduce our speaker tonight, Tom Kuppinen. He's a solution architect and joins us from one of the top cloud encoding platforms, Bitmovin, who just recently won an Emmy for innovations in online broadcasting. And Tom is here to discuss cloud encoding and overview and best practices. So over to you, Tom. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Christopher, and appreciate the opportunity here to speak tonight. Before I get going, this is not at all intended to be any type of sales pitch about Bitmovin. A lot of the concepts I'll talk about here tonight are, I would look at it more as a combination of the things that, Bitmovin has learned, both about implementing a cloud encoder of our own and how we advise our customers and our partners to leverage cloud encoding. But, obviously, since I'm with Bitmovin, a lot of the materials and a lot of the things that I talk about are more Bitmovin oriented in the things we've specifically done. But, please feel free to treat this talk as, what we would recommend if you were to go about trying to build your own cloud encoding solution, some of the general best practices, or if you were integrating with a cloud encoding provider, some of the things to be mindful of or things to look at. So first, just a little bit about Bitmovin at all. These are our two founders. They're from Austria. They're come out of a strong academic background with the University of Klagenfurt. Many of our employees are still either PhD track students or lecture at the local university itself. Part of the Y Combinator program, relatively, I guess we're getting to the middle age in terms of startups these days, being founded in 2013. And strong patent portfolio and two relatively young-looking co-founders. Some of the people we work with, we all know streaming video is taking off, but just to give you some idea of the partners we work with, it's not so much about the logos themselves, it's really about the broad sense of use cases and partners we're working with. Everyone from more your traditional print first, maybe publishing media companies like New York Times evolving to digital, to government partnered broadcasters like BBC, to more your traditional OTT services. These are the three areas we focus on as a company. I'm not going to dig into all of them. We're, of course, here to talk about encoding, but we are more micro focused on these three aspects of the video playback experience. And this is only important because these do come up in themes as we talk about some of the benefits of cloud encoding and some of the things we recommend as best practices. These are really the three core values we look to bring to our partners and really feel that cloud encoding and cloud solutions in general can provide improved experiences, obviously a much faster time to market, and of course operational optimization. Being able to control costs, mitigate risk becomes really important. And if you have any interest in cloud encoding at all in terms of integrating or implementing that solution, I would probably think that your main two areas of focus would be on the last two, right? Like being able to get things done more quickly, being able to get things done with managing complexity and mitigate risk, and really isolating that concern for encoding itself. This is, again, if we're judging by having the crowd here, this is the results from our most recent developer survey in terms of what our customers, our partners are focused on and what has changed due to these new and interesting times we all live in as a result of COVID-19. And you can see it bears out, like the concept of reducing cost or changing business model or getting market services to market more quickly, right? Like these are all really strong use cases for the cloud. And this is a little different, a little more deeper finding that we talked about at Streaming Media West last year. Like what what are we really seeing in the video market when we start looking at where cloud encoding comes in and helps and really getting more operational efficiency. This what we're seeing in the market across all swaths, whether it's your traditional OTT service providers or it's the companies that are becoming more new to streaming. There's the real concept of a success tax, right? With COVID, especially accelerating streaming adoption, users are watching more, but from a pure monetization standpoint, you're not getting any more, not getting many more dollars from these users, except in the case sometimes of ads. And it's all, we live in a streaming world now. Users are less tolerant of the traditional glitches with video delivery over the internet that people became used to as streaming became more popular, maybe at the turn of the last decade. And agility, especially with a lot of new codecs coming to market more quickly. How quickly can you adopt them? How can you bring them into your platform more efficiently? Can you deliver changes quickly and use A/B testing to prove value? So that being said, I mean, I didn't want to, not intended to be any type of sales pitch or anything, just kind of giving you some high level background on what Bitmovin is and sort of where we fit in the market. And then, sort of what we see is like what resonates when people start talking about cloud encoding. So that being said, let's get into more the nuts and bolts of cloud encoding. High level, these are really like what our customers are seeing as the benefit of looking at a cloud solution. And a combination of that also with a bit of recommendations around if you are approaching the concept of developing a cloud encoder, these are some things to keep in mind. Is your solution cloud agnostic, right? We're seeing with our partners, with the customers we work with, cloud storage, cloud computing is becoming incredibly competitive in the market today. There's no, for lack of a better word, real loyalty, I would say, to any one particular cloud solution or cloud provider. Our customers are demanding the ability to be able to switch cloud providers, be more agnostic to it, not be tied to a particular cloud solution when you look at your computing or your storage options here as well. The second one, it's a little more of a product focus, but you start looking at the operational efficiency you can gain in the cloud. What are the advancements you can look at? For Bitmovin, it's things like PerTitle encoding, right? Like being able to do complex analysis on a piece of content and generate an optimal bitrate ladder for that piece of content. There are, of course, other innovations that you can take advantage of the cloud. This is just an example of one we've done. Multi-codec. I think this is a key advantage. If you've been in the realm of video for a while or dealt with hardware encoders, sometimes codec upgrades or enhancements require literally a new piece of hardware or a hardware update. When you're looking at cloud encoding and you decentralize that, not really an option. Distributed parallel processing. We found in head-to-head tests against your traditional bare metal server encoders that we can get the job done more quickly and at a better quality. And being able to integrate more advanced features more quickly as well too. These are the things that our customers are pushing for. If you're looking to create or integrate a cloud encoding provider, these are the things you need to be aware of: 4K, HDR, Dolby Vision, those type of things. More considerations. So again, I talked about the multi-cloud, multi-region. So it's not only from what you can offer your customers, but if you are, again, looking to develop a cloud encoding solution, is your service truly going to be agnostic? So not only being agnostic to your customer storage, but can you actually run an encoding process in their environment as well, right? Take advantage of their cloud computing credits, cloud computing agreements. Test-driven multi-stage deployments. That has been a key lesson for Bitmovin throughout the years. If you look at being aggressive, looking at a time to market, getting your offering to the market more quickly, you also have to make sure that you're not introducing bugs through regression, of course, as well. As we all know, the encoding process, there are a lot of different touch points, can become very complex very quickly. So, ensure that you're taking a test-driven development first. And like I said, we've learned a lot by working with our customers, our client streams. We found that, they, as much as we think we know, our clients are teaching us every year, right? We're learning new things from our partners, new streaming use cases every time. So being able to take those and incorporate those into your testing is extremely valuable. Apologies, my coworker's a little restless right now. Observability, like the advantage you have by isolating the concern of encoding or any real service into like a cloud environment or a microservice environment, if you will. Being able to find deep diagnostic info via an API interface, which we'll talk a little bit more lately, and a dashboard tool at a very granular level becomes valuable. Giving either your internal teams or your customers, whatever your cloud encoding use case is, the data they need for traceability and operational control. Right? There is always that need to bring data back out of the service you're providing for the consumer or the customer. Again, we're very encoding specific, but I think a lot of these lessons really we've learned about our other product offerings, and I've seen throughout the years if you try to bring any customer-facing market, whether your customers are actual external paid customers or internal as you've developed, making sure you're providing a high level of visibility into status, right? Being very detailed about encoding errors, and as we get into some of the more deep diagrams, we can talk about where we see problems and what our most common pain points are. And of course, detailed encoding performance, right? Because you not only have to talk about being able to provide things like cost savings, things like efficiency, you have to be able to show that in the data you provide back to your customers. And again, innovation made easier, right? Some of the considerations, the lessons we've learned. Bitmovin, again, not part of any type of sale or anything, but when you look at cloud encoding, a lot of cloud encoders we see in the market today are really just a cloud interface on top of a bare metal server or server infrastructure. Are you really designed from the cloud up, right? Like, are you really, when you look at the process of encoding, are you taking the file down into more digestible chunks and doing the encoding in smaller, more discrete functions and then packaging the file back up at the end? That's an approach Bitmovin takes. And of course, advanced codec support without server upgrades. We've hit on that already. I won't beat that dead horse anymore. And wanted to also talk a little bit about our core principles as we look at all of our products, but really, especially with a focus on encoding. Maintaining technology leadership and innovation has always been number one for us. And I think when you look at any type of, whether you're developing a service for either external teams or internal teams, that's number one. We've seen achievements of up to 100x real time in terms of, you look at content playback, being able to encode content that quickly. Being able to, again, take that concern of encoding and isolate it into a single, more powerful service, enables support for things like leading monetization strategies, things like DRM, SSAI. We've really taken that complexity away from our partners. And again, if you're looking at any type of encoding development, these are things to consider as well. They're not easily solved problems in many cases, but they are things to consider. Enabling customer innovation, whether your customers are internal or external, minimizing the onboarding time, making your service as easy to consume as possible becomes a key for us. And growing your community is absolutely key. Whatever mechanism you take to do that, whether it's enabling a strong community, strong support for open source, enabling a comprehensive GitHub repository, whatever it takes. And then across all of our products, but encoding especially, we've tried to create as low a friction adoption as possible by a very, very rich API. So being able to do things in a scalable, modular approach is key. especially with encoding, which really has a lot of discrete steps and really has a lot of configuration that you can turn over to your end customers. So I actually took a lot of time going back and forth about where to put this, and then as I go through it tonight, I almost wonder if I shouldn't have put it earlier in the talk. But this is a slide we're trying to illustrate here. Where does cloud encoding fit? And I realize now our design team, there's a typo in here, which is just embarrassing for me, but I'll resolve that later. So, you know, many of us, we're all professionals here. We're aware of how complex the whole video workflow can be. But, you know, when you start breaking it out, I think it does two things for us. One, we look at the totality of the problem, like how to bring video from an origin to playback on a customer device. Where does cloud encoding fit in that solution, and what shouldn't it be, right? Like your cloud encoding solution, you can't be concerned about things like your CDN partner for the end customer, right? Like you really have to isolate this concern and focus on, you know, developing your capabilities there. And, you know, candidly, from a commercial standpoint, we get into many conversations where customers are looking for, I just want one platform. I just essentially want like video delivery in a box. And there are many great partners out there that do that. But when you look at truly being a best-in-class video provider, it's really tough to leverage one of those platforms and deliver a truly best-in-breed solution. So, you know, candidly, that's why people like HBO Max, for example, don't do that, right? Like there's no one solution that'll work for everyone. So, you know, we're all aware of the problems, you know, like the big problems that a good CMS solution will resolve, doing things like, you know, content orchestration and scheduling services. Some of those, of course, get folded into CMS services here as well. And, you know, on the other end, the far end, you look at things like ad services in a video player. We do also work in the video player realm, but, you know, it's truly, there's a lot of, shall we say, efficiencies we gain by working in both worlds, but they truly are separate offerings. And there are things you can learn and empower with both, but they really are separate and need to be treated as such. So what is the process of cloud encoding, right? Like what does it mean when we look at that? You know, for us, when we look at the definition of it, you know, assets are dropped into a cloud or cloud accessible storage location, right? And made available to a cloud encoding service. The API is, you know, your access point. This is how you get into the service itself and, you know, do the things like, you know, to specify which codecs you want for output, your output locations, where you want to send the output, what type of closed captioning and subtitles do you need to support here? Is this live? Is this VOD? We're all aware of how complex live encoding can be and some of the unique challenges there, all the different inputs you can support, and the additional challenges if you have to support like more of a dynamic ad insertion workflow on top of that as well. Then we look at, you know, the concept of a managed encoding, right? Like I talked earlier around, you know, if you're providing a cloud encoding service, you also have to be very cognizant of the fact that many of the partners you work with will have far better cloud encoding contractual or agreements or credits than you could ever hope to achieve with someone like an Azure or an AWS. So can you enable a service to actually run in their cloud infrastructure, and you're just providing with some air gaps or some APIs back out, more that monitoring, more that, you know, service usage type model here, right? And again, I won't go through all the different components here, but this is what we look at in our platform, right? Like what is it, you know, what are the discrete components here that you need to be aware of here, right? Again, if you're looking at more of an internal team, maybe a billing service isn't that relevant for you, but these are all the types of things that, you know, more of a commercial offering you have to consider, right? And, you know, again, the process of encoding, there are a lot of potential touch points. Encoding can be, from a process standpoint, very simple. Take one file in, split it out into 3 to 5 to 8 different renditions. If you have to worry about things like DRM, are you worried about like a multi-DRM solution? Are you worried about forensic watermarking? Are you worried about keyframe insertion for ads? Are you working about other ad workflows here as well? Resource management. When you take in an encoding request from one of your partners, you really want to remove that complexity from them, right? So to do that's really, like I said, a lot of work on our end. And the big kickoff, the big touch point for us is that encoding resource service. So we take the request in, we do some, like it basically says, validate if it makes sense. Is someone trying to do something that can't be done? Are you trying to create a 4K output from like a 720 input, something that basic, right? So get that minimal information and then hand it off, and then give the end consumer just some information back around where to go to find out status about this. Like I mentioned, this is very specific because we have these things, but this is something we learned early on when we started going with cloud encoding and bringing an encoding solution to the market. Was you really have to have that strong API integration. If you're providing that cloud service, there might be some who want to go into maybe a dashboard and try and do things one-off at a time, but the larger customers you start working with, the larger teams, the more complex, the more advanced the video services group might be, whether it's internally or externally, they're going to want that API integration. They're going to want to handle that orchestration and do that on their own. I don't know what his problem is tonight, but he won't stay outside and he won't leave me alone. So apologies for that. And these are some of the things we look at when we talk about our APIs, right? Is it easy to get started? We've put a lot of conscious effort into adopting the open API specification for our APIs and trying to make them as easy as possible. So even though I'm a solutions architect that, is part of my day job is working with prospects, customers to get them onboarded, do we have the resources where someone could just get access to our API and get going without talking to me? My wife would think that's a good thing, but some people don't. And are you adopting like a rapid innovation cycle, right? Like for us, we looked at the way our customers going. It's been years now, but we truly see, for the most part, our customers are in an agile mindset. 2 weeks, 1 week, we have a lot of customers moving to a 1 week agile cycle. They want frequent updates. They don't want these big milestone releases. There are always those cases where you do have a big milestone release. You're going from, like for us last year, for example, our big player upgrade was from 7 to 8, but we don't do those big year-long milestones anymore ourselves either. Our customers don't work that way either. And then it's funny, in all of our collateral, I joke with our marketing team, we talk about API first, but it's always the last bullet point on all of our slides. It really should be, if we're going to be API first, it needs to be the first API. But with all of our products, I know we're talking about encoding, and again, this isn't Bitmovin specific per se, but I think this is just the way the modern workflow, the way modern software development has gone. Everything is an API first approach to providing whatever the service is to your end customer, your end application. So for us, obviously with encoding, every piece of this is available. Everything you see within our dashboards, I tell our prospects and customers all the time that everything we provide to you, you could rebuild and put into, and I think I have a slide on this after, like if you want to do your own monitoring into Grafana, are you making that data available that your, whether internal or external customers can use in their own environment, because the adoption of things like Grafana, Tableau, and all these other data visualization pieces that people don't want to come to like a Bitmovin dashboard. In many cases, they want to take that data and put it into their own alerting, into their own data warehouses, their own workflows. And this is it here. I mean, this is ours, and we're literally using a lot of our own APIs that we provide to our end customers in more of an aggregate form. But this is our, a snapshot of a middle to lower end time, really, type of usage period. We use Prometheus and Grafana internally. We are actually seeing a lot of adoption of Grafana across a lot of our customers lately. They're doing a really good job coming to market. And I talked before about what does that innovation cycle look at. These are the type of things that we're looking at in the coming months. Some of the things that we've just rolled out and concepts. Again, this is Bitmovin specific, but these are just things that the market is bringing us towards, and also our a lot of our academic resources is bringing us to as well. So won't go through all of them by any stretch, but they're really broken out into a few different areas, and I think they're strong considerations if you're looking at developing your own encoding solution. One is, what are the things you can do to improve quality as it exists today? So improved deinterlacer support, doing multiple quality passes, all the way down to always keeping your core principles in mind of, are you doing things to help whether internal or external teams achieve more optimal efficiency? So being able to support our Cloud Connects, our internal term for being able to do like a managed encoding, leverage our customers' cloud infrastructure. Are you adding additional subtitle handling? A lot of regulatory concerns, a lot of need for advanced subtitle support. So if you're doing any type of encoding workflow, we're seeing a lot more of that. I'd be interested to hear from the group as well if they're seeing that. Improved security, forensic watermarking, as even more premium content's become made available for OTT distribution. Our customers are being pressed to deliver like advanced security solutions for that content. DRM's not enough for some of the big Hollywood studios, for sure. It's an overview of our PerTitle algorithm. I think we can go over this one a little later if you'd like, but wanted to call it out because I think it is a great use of a couple things here. One, it shows the type of innovation you can enable in the cloud. It shows the type of things that I think you need to be keeping to the more of those core principles of, are you doing things to achieve operational efficiency? Are you doing things to save cost? Are you doing things to improve quality, right? So, this is a very academic approach to essentially solving the problem of, how do you create as low a bitrate rendition as possible that delivers the highest objective quality as well too. So, we look at more objective metrics around, PSNR, VMAF to do this evaluation of encodings, and do dynamic assessment of content, and optimize encoding to ensure that we're hitting as high a possible objective quality score while producing as low a rendition as possible here as well. And with that, I'm not used to talking this long uninterrupted, especially with my dogs and 4 kids here, but I hope the group has found this somewhat valuable, and any questions that anyone might have, I would love to hear anyone else's voice right about now. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
That was really great. Thanks for sharing. It's really great insights in how cloud encoding works and things to consider when you're doing cloud encoding. So yeah, open up the floor now. Just go ahead, unmute your mic, ask a question for Tom. Rob?
Yes, Rob. Roskin? Oh, I never know with Google Meets if you're supposed to answer the raised hand somehow either.
Feel like a radio DJ. You're live, Rob. If you want to type it in chat, I can read it out too. If you want. I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
So with the cloud agnostic part, like there were a lot of problems recently where people tried to move from like AWS to GCS or what Google Cloud and all that. But from the talk, it looks like at least Bitmovin they've already deployed onto all sort of the major ones already. But was that like a big something difficult to do to sort of support multiple sort of cloud architectures or infrastructures at the same time?
Yeah, I think there's a couple points to that. One, it's almost more of a North American centric perspective, but the major ones have been relatively easy to work with, like the Google Cloud and the AWS. But we're seeing a lot of fragmentation, especially in the EMEA market. When I talk to my colleagues in EMEA, there's a lot of emerging cloud providers that are really coming to market and providing a lot of pressure on us to give that level of support. But it is ultimately important to be able to do it. And I think, when you look at the way our development team has taken the approach of, really doing a good job creating abstract interfaces to these type of solutions, how can you manage that expertise internally, right? So we do have a lot of internal expertise, for example, in the areas of AWS and Google Cloud, but they're different resources. So I think those are a couple of considerations to keep in mind.
Cool, thanks. Rob, you want to try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much. That was a really good talk. I had a question on, you had mentioned PerTitle as being kind of like the optimized way to do cloud encoding, and I didn't know things like per scene, are they just too much money? Is it too many CPUs being used? And then my second question is, when it came to HDR, is it the new HD DVD Blu-ray as far as you guys see it from where you sit, or how do you guys see all the HDR formats netting out?
Well, I thought the second one would be the easier question to answer, but the first one actually is, as far as per scene, I didn't want to go too far into a product spiel, but that is actually very much on our near-term roadmap. We've done a lot of work to optimize for that, and full disclosure, I think a lot of the market's being really led by Netflix. When you look at it, they've been provided a lot of leadership in this area as to where to bring things. But yeah, we're pretty close with per scene encoding from a commercial standpoint. As far as it being too many CPUs, no, that wasn't really the issue. It's just more complex. That's been the feedback from our engineering team. It's not so much a hardware limitation right now, or a virtual hardware limitation. On the second one, that's a good question. Candidly, I don't have a great answer for you where we see all the HD formats netting out. We've seen, if you're looking from a pure market standpoint, again, I'll couch my answer as being very America specific, because I barely speak English, so I don't get to talk to too many foreign or international prospects. But we're seeing a lot of excitement around Dolby and their offerings in that area, and HDR10 support as well. But yeah, I don't have a good handle on where that's all going to net out.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Always interested to hear about pain points in live encoding.
Sorry, your mic was a little quiet. I'll just repeat that back. You tell me if it was wrong. Were you interested in hearing about pain points about live?
Yes. Very much. Yes, exactly.
Not to borrow too many cliches, but essentially keeping the hamster on the wheel. There always seems to be something going wrong with like the input source or the origin, right? Like that seems to be our biggest problem is, like the actual SRT or Zixi endpoint going down, right? That we're taking from, I don't want to call out Zixi. I do not take that as any type of shit. They're great partners of ours. That's just one of the formats we support. But candidly, yeah, it's rough empirical feedback based on the support tickets I've seen as it relates to live. They're probably 55 to 60% always related to an origin issue. There's more complexity coming in when you look at like what our customers are looking to do with live encoding. I would say there's two parts. One, we're seeing a lot more what you might call non-traditional video providers looking to support live video use cases. Yeah, it's very interesting. Educational properties, right? Maybe as a function of COVID, or maybe just more resources available. Financial, for maybe I think some for like investor or stock type meetings, right? Those type of things. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of non-traditional video people looking to get into live. So I think that's going to be one that challenges us. How do we minimize that complexity for people trying to get into the live video space? And as I ramble, I think me personally, editorial, people are outgrowing like the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live, in terms of how do you support like a live workflow, right? Like they want more. They want to be able to embed it into their own apps, their own property. They want to own more of the process, and it's probably selfishly more of the revenue as well too, if it's associated to that. Other areas of innovation we're seeing pushed on live, multi-camera experiences, not just in sports as well too. How do you synchronize multiple live feeds to as close like a frame accurate timing as possible? That's becoming more and more popular. Of course, sports is still number one in there, but we have had some, again, non-traditional video partners looking to support those type of use cases as well.
Very slick. Oh, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Another question? Anyone? I had another question about
Sure.
Because you're in the cloud, you're talking kind of about the benefits of the flexibility you have. So in terms of like turnaround time for a feature request or thing like that, what typically is like, is it like a week that you would push something live, that you'd be able to sort of, the development team would be able to sort of, from inception to development to testing to it being live? Like, is that a week too short, or is it about right? Or
no, so this is the part where the product and development team go back and watch this on YouTube and end up like coming after me. So I have to be very careful on how I answer this one here. A week is probably a little aggressive, right? Like we do need to balance, all the work we do. We're at the end, us from the Bitmovin perspective, we're able to deliver a lot of things quickly, but we're still ultimately a small company in the grand scheme of things. Seen tremendous response from product and development to like more urgent customer requests, within a single sprint. We personally are moving to a 1 week cycle, but up till last year we were on a 2 week cycle. So I've seen as quick a turnaround as time as that. But the more major features like for forensic watermarking, for example, those are going to take a little longer than that.
I just want to touch a bit on the HDR stuff. Like,
Sure.
The HDR stuff is it almost I would say it's closer to maybe what could stick with versus like 3D. Like I feel like 3D big thing 2-3 years ago was everything you get like a 3D TV.
Yeah.
Like HDR has it's a little bit much more of a like a tactile feeling to the video, where I personally I never got into 3D video.
Or maybe VR at this point as well too. A lot of talk about VR, not a lot of practical use cases we've seen yet. Definitely some exciting concepts, but I think you're right. I do think some of the other considerations I think about are cost. Ultimately, we've seen some trepidation from our end customers in being able to deliver 4K or HDR like over the internet becomes still pretty expensive. So, but yeah, I think you're right. I think as an emerging trend for 2021, we're seeing talk around that, right? Like our customers looking to support either a separate commercial tier for 4K content or their own exclusive content being in 4K as more of a distinction in terms of that value add for a service offering.
That makes sense. Scott?
Yeah, I have kind of a selfish question, because I've been looking for providers who can sort of deliver rich metadata. So like we want to drive our application along with features of the bitstream in kind of real time. And like, do you have any, like, everyone wants to do ad markers and subtitles. And things like that. But do you see more any customers or any features coming through that would be more rich metadata? Like I'm thinking like things like on Amazon Prime they have the full cast like from IMDb like synced with the video and things like that, like rich data like that. Do you see things like that coming through, or do you already have features like that allow things into the encoding pipeline?
Yeah, we've seen, it's a good example, I think, of where, stepping back out, we're seeing a lot of demand for that on the player side of the Bitmovin house as well, how to support those type of use cases. And again, you brought up a good point. Like at the end of the day, you still have to get the data from wherever it is in your back end all the way out to the video player. So we're seeing some customers use things like ID3 tags for that type of support, or some more of the traditional, more standardized things. And from Bitmovin, I think we do it. I candidly, looking at the competition, there aren't many encoders that don't do that at this point. It's really about, that's really more of like a front end player side problem that we run into. Getting the data, like I'll phrase it this way, handling the data, whether it's ID3 tags, for example, that nuts and bolts. Like we do that, a lot of other people do that. Can you get that data into your encoding pipeline at the right time is one of the bigger challenges we see. And then on the player side, surfacing it, easy enough to do. We do that. Many other players do that as well. What do you do with it then? Like, do you have the capability on the application side to do anything with all that data? And yeah, I think me personally, Amazon Prime is probably my favorite video playback experience, largely because of that. But they've made it look incredibly easy, but it's very complex in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no idea how they deliver it. I assume they were delivering it out of band anyway. But
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, worries. Yeah, and just to tie that back, a little more context. We're seeing a lot of use cases where customers want to inject things into more like a live stream as well too, whether it's a scoreboard, whether it's breaking news updates, things like that. That's really probably a better use case for ID3. You're right. Maybe more static or VOD content's better out of band or sidecar loaded anyway.
Yeah, my use case was also live, and it's it's getting it and making sure it's matched up properly from the production side in real time is the trick. Like you can get it in there, but then you're like, well, it's like a little bit off, and then you're just mucking with timing, and it's a pain.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not an area that we we at Bitmovin have gotten into. We can handle it if it's coming to the workflow, but yeah, editing that data is not something we play with either.
Okay.
Any other questions from the crowd? I had another one.
Sure.
What kind of percentage for adoption have you seen compared to just calling sort of the Bitmovin APIs directly versus like SDK integration? Like
Mostly SDKs. Yeah, we advocate for that, and it removes that level of complexity. I mean, again, America's focused more than anything, but there's so many great orchestration tools out there that can handle like an SDK implementation. We don't even have to work many times with like a true software development team. Like it's network engineering, DevOps team can get this integrated.
Cool. Any other questions? Doesn't look like it. So yeah, just wrap up. Thanks, Tom, for coming out tonight. Thank you, everyone. I know everyone's probably super busy, lots to do. So really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting KW Video Tech. And thank you, Tom, again for giving a great talk tonight.
Thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Bye.